All right, what's up, everybody? We are live. It's Ballet Brand. So I'm going to run the intro in just a couple of seconds. That's going to go for about 6.5 minutes. So at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'll be going live. If a couple of Hexicans want to join, they can. I'll throw out the StreamYard link in just a few minutes. But for now, we're going to start the intro. It's about a 6-minute intro, okay? So bear with me while the intro plays, and I'll see you on the other side.
HEX is the first certificate of deposit on the blockchain. It's an immutable smart contract that rewards those who lock up their coins when they stake. In other words, HEX was designed to be like a long-term savings account, but with far greater yield than anything the bank has to offer. If you're new to cryptocurrencies, here's how all of this works. When you purchase HEX, it behaves just like any other cryptocurrency. They vary in price as people trade them, just like Bitcoin. However, unlike other crypto assets, HEX pays you interest in the form of more HEX for locking up your monetary value for a selective period of time. The longer you time lock your HEX, the higher your interest rate will be. This is not unlike a traditional banking certificate of deposit. The key difference is, HEX was designed to yield extraordinarily high rates of return versus typical banking products, and puts you in complete control over your finances. But what does this really look like? Some people get into HEX without understanding enough about the product. They immediately make a large investment and throw out a few random stakes between 1 to 2 years. While this is great, HEX was designed to produce significant returns in both interest and fiat value over the course of several years, not just 1 or 2. If you properly understand its design, you can set yourself up to earn a perpetual passive income from HEX. This is like planting an orchard of apple trees. Apple trees are designed to take time to fully mature before they yield significant amounts of produce. HEX was designed in much the same way. Could you imagine trying to live on 2-year-old fruit trees that only just started producing a fraction of their full potential? Sure, you may see significant growth and even yield a little produce, but it would be impossible to enjoy the fruits of your labor for years to come. But what if you employed a longer-term plan in the development of your apple orchard? What if you planted a new crop each year from years 1 to 15? And what if you continued this process every year thereafter? If you did this, you would essentially have a never-ending supply of apples for generations. Can you imagine how much produce you'd receive from your 10 to 15-year-old apple trees? You could supply enough apples to feed a small country. This is exactly how HEX Savings works. It's a long-term savings account. Now, I'm not saying you should lock up all of your HEX for 15 years and forget about it. Although some have, and they seem to be quite happy with their decision. I'm saying, if you build a proper staking ladder, one that sets stakes to mature up to 10 or 15 years from today, you can enjoy the maximum yield on your investment for years to come. Having stakes set to mature between years 1 through 15 allows you to enjoy the fruits of your investment early, while also giving you the patience and discipline to reap potentially life-changing rewards in the longer term. It's the same as enjoying the abundant fruits of a 15-year-old apple tree versus a 1-year-old tree. Imagine if Bitcoin was designed this way. All of those who bought Bitcoin for $1 in the early years maybe wouldn't have sold all of their holdings at $10 and missed out on an additional 600,000% ROI in less than 7 years. Not to mention where the price is today. Maybe if Bitcoin earned more Bitcoin in the form of interest for holding, more investors would hold long-term and be less likely to sell. These supply and demand economics cause the price to soar with very little sell pressure. It's a model that allows everyone the opportunity to succeed. What happens if the global HEX network only sells their interest monthly, quarterly, or yearly and restakes their remaining principal? Theoretically, it allows for the most stable price appreciation to the upside over time. Climbing prices, coupled with unparalleled interest rates for HEX stakers, creates a positive feedback loop that ultimately leads to one thing: freedom for all. Learn more and get started today at Hex.com.
sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, be sure to share, be sure to comment. Yeah. Say hey. Say hey, hey, woo! Hey, yeah! Say hey, woo! Say hey, yeah! Say hey, hey! Woo! Stake that hex, 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 stake that hex. Hey! Every time I look up, price went up. I go to the store, come back, price went up. Every time I look up, price went up. No matter what I do, price is still going up. Hell yeah. Ching, ching, motherfucker. Ching, ching. I am the book. Ching, ching, motherfucker. I just keep hitting jackpot after motherfucking jackpot. We still jackpot, bitch!
Thank you, Richard, for creating and founding the most amazing and disruptive financial technology cryptocurrency ever. Thank you, sir. And nice streams, Mr. Balliet Brand.
Alrighty, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Balliet Brand. Hope everybody is having a wonderful Sunday and wonderful day wherever you're coming in from. Today we're going to be doing the normal Hex live stream. I wasn't able to meet last Sunday or the Sunday before that, but we're back and it feels good. So I recently did a live stream as well, also that had the hoodie from Crypty Girl, and just wanted to actually shout her out real quick to start off the actual stream itself. So Crypty has made a lot of clothing, and she recently did something for the Hexicans, which all of you can go on her website and take a look. So just want to start off the stream because the actual hoodie itself is very colorful, it's very vibrant, and personally I've been getting a lot of positive looks, and so just want to shout out her store where you can take a look. So it's cryptshop.com, and you can see the Hex hoodie right there. We've got a Bitcoin hoodie. She's got a whole bunch of stuff. This is actually one that I haven't seen yet. This Hex one right in the middle. But just wanted to shout her out because she's got some really cool clothing that she does. All right, so today, what are we going to be talking about? Let's get back to me. So today, we're going to cover some information. Myself and Dollar Cost and Motley Investor, we did a stream earlier in the day, and Motley was doing a Pokemon card review and unboxing. So wanted to shout him out. And also want to spread the link where you guys can find that. I will go over that in just a second here. Let me get over to the history. So yeah, shout out to Motley because, one thing that Funding Jim Gary talks a lot about is, if you're marketing a brand or you have some information that you're sharing, not to just stay in one niche particularly, but to also, diversify and cross promote. And so that's something that Motley's done very well with the One Chip Challenge and recently with the cards. So let me actually just share my screen real quick. Earlier, like I said, myself and Dollar Cost and Motley. Okay, 1 second here. Okay, so you can see this is the, that's the title and that's the video itself. Motley had 2 cameras going, and then towards the end, myself and Dollar Cost were there as well. So just wanted to shout that out because Motley's another guy in the community, and we should all be supporting each other Hexicans. So without further ado, let's stop sharing the screen and let's get into the Hex price, the Ethereum price. What's going on in the market. I've had people reach out to me, and the market itself, even though we're in a bull market, it goes up and down, like I've mentioned, kind of like a roller coaster. And sometimes on the downturn of the actual chart itself, people get nervous or, wonder like, oh, is this going to zero? What's happening? So we're going to cover that in just 1 second. Okay, let's cover Ethereum first. 1 second here. Okay. Okay. So right off the bat, it shows the Amazon chart, but we're going to also show the Ethereum chart as well. One thing that Richard did recently was a live stream with this gentleman named Harry that was a traditional stock guy. And actually towards the very end of the conversation, there was an argument of the actual printing of money and, is this bubble going to burst? And I know this isn't directly related with the Ethereum, but one thing Richard was kind of talking about is as you have the US printing more money, even though it's going up in dollar terms, it doesn't necessarily mean you're gaining value. So I just wanted to kind of cover something like that, because the guy's theory was that, there was going to be this huge stock market crash. And it seems that, to Richard's point, we might be having similar to a Venezuela chart where, it's almost going parabolic and continues to go parabolic. So I just wanted to cover a little bit of that real quick. But right now we've got the Ethereum chart. And like I mentioned, some people towards the downside of the actual chart start getting really nervous. But in my opinion, the best thing you can really do is zoom out, right? You got to zoom out and really see the bigger picture. Because at the end of the day, cryptocurrency itself is very volatile and does go up and down a lot. But I mean, even if we zoom out all the way from, March 2020 to about now, that's almost a year, and you can just see how much growth it's already had. And, nothing goes up forever. Nothing goes up straight up forever. It always has corrections. So to, the people that might have concerns on Ethereum right now or long term, I don't have those same opinions. So without further ado, let's get into the chat. We've got some Hexicans in here, and just want to say thank you for everyone that is tuning in, that is watching. We'll start from the bottom. We got Corey. He says, "Hey Balliet, good evening, man. Good to see you, Corey. Thank you for your music and just your contribution as well." Let's see. Hexican says Coinbase has introduced staking with Ethereum. Copycat coins, shaking my head. Yeah, honestly, it's almost similar to what Richard mentions when you're talking about DM now, which used to be Libra, where people will come in for the USDC, or they'll come in for the Facebook coin, and then they'll realize, oh my gosh, there's this Facebook coin that I'm in, but then there's this whole ecosystem of mad gains, right? So, it doesn't necessarily have to be Hex to be the first thing that they get onboarded to, although we would like that. Sometimes people have to get involved in other cryptos first, or NFTs or things like that, which we might not like, but they eventually hear about, the cool kid on the block, which is Hex. So yeah, Hexican, even though it's a different project and things like that, I think the more attention we can bring to the space in the Bitcoin, Ethereum, Hex, the better. So I'm not sure if that'll gain attention or not, but at the end of the day, hopefully we can just instill to crypto that you shouldn't be leaving your money on exchanges. You shouldn't be leverage trading and things like this, where you're gonna most likely get wrecked. I mean, even look at the Kraken. Yeah, right here. The actual chart itself, if we go back to the tab, you can see this is on the Kraken exchange, and it wicked down Ethereum on February 22nd, UTC time, wicked down to $700. That's a 50% drop. And what that is pretty much a liquidation wick, where, anyone that had their money on the Kraken exchange that was maybe, leverage long, most likely got liquidated, And so that's definitely what happens when you're trading. Is generally the exchange that you're trading on, they can kind of see where you're trading at, or other players in the game, and they can they can call your bluff via stopping out your trades. So yeah, Corey, good to see you. Hexable Archer, we got some other Hexicans in the house. So shout out to Baggio, Bling Bling, loving the metal brand. Thank you. It's just from shapeways.com. Just type in Hex in the search, and there's 2 different versions of Hex. Hex 3D printed things. Yeah, I like the hoodie. Exactly. I tell you what, I think the retail cost is like $70, something like that. 65 or like $70 for the hoodie. And I've never seen a garment that was just so colorful, right? The actual work that is done on this, I sure hope that my built-in webcam can kind of capture all of the color. But Crypty did a really good job, and then also she's got her logo on the actual lower part of the shirt. When you go to put your hoodie on, she's got her Crypty logo. So it's marketed very well. The color itself hasn't dulled when I wash it. So shout out to her and shout out to Kareem. Yeah, Hexican, good to see you, man. He says, what's up, guys? Nice to see you all. Identity Block, good to see you. Let's see. Northernmost Hexer. All right, Pabalaba. Okay, cool. All right, so, and then Matty Allen, actually, he's there as well. So, if any of the Hexicans want to come in, we're going to be probably going until Hexologist goes live, which is about an hour and 30 minutes from now. So 90 minutes from now, we'll go until Hexa goes live, and then we'll host him. So Billy Boy Crypto, he's in the house as well. And let me just get some water, and then we'll cover some of Richard Hart's tweets, some Hex information, some price information. Okie dokie. All right, so I actually want to cover a tweet that Richard Hart did recently, because when we talk about Hex and we talk about DeFi, a lot of people assume that something is going to have 100% uptime, or that it's truly decentralized. And what we find out is a lot of these DeFi projects, they've got price oracles, and they've got things like admin keys that they don't make it decentralized. All right, let me share the screen real quick here. Okie dokie. Okay, so this is one of Richard's tweets, kind of just talking about some DeFi that has crashed recently or that has been hacked, right? So the tweet says, for laughs, let's post some bad things that have happened in crypto while Hex has been 100% up. So Raven's inflation bug, KuCoin, BitMEX, OKX, Sushi, and then he's got a whole bunch of other things here as well. And then actually, give me just a second, guys, while I take off my coat. It is getting just a little bit hot in here, so let me take off my coat real quick. Okay. All right. So Richard also talks about the Blue Kirby NFT exit, a whole bunch of things that were supposed to, represent either decentralized finance or crypto in general. And in reality, a lot of these things, they're involving middlemen, right? And so anytime you involve, like account managers and hedge funds or people that are, trying to trade, a lot of times they don't perform as well as just buying and holding. So that's one thing that Richard's covered recently. And one thing that's actually really positive for Hex is that it is, trusty, right? It's Mr. Reliable. And the 100% uptime in Hex is not to be ignored, right? Hex has had a lot of successes, and that's just one of them. But in my opinion, it's one of the more important things in Hex. Its security is important, and then also the fact that it has 100% uptime is important, because when you have a lot of money that's involved in the ecosystem itself and that's running on the smart contract itself, you want to make sure that it's secure and that your favorite DeFi that you're in doesn't get not exit scammed, but like inflation bugged or hacked. So identity block, a lot of caca in that list. Yeah, there is a lot of projects that, people thought were decentralized, people thought were going to number one, and they end up, they end up having some sort of failure. And then Richard's got right here, this is the Hex chart. He says 100% uptime, guys. Reliability, not price. Price is up 7,149%. So, and then he says, this is things that happened just after Hex launched. So, in crypto, one day in crypto feels like a month, right? In the regular market. So for Hex to have this kind of stability and reliability, I think is important. And we're going to cover the Hex information in just a second too. And then, like I said, if a couple of the Hexicans want to come on, we can. We'll be going at max until Hexologist goes. All right, let's take a look at another link real quick here. Okay. So in Hex, it's all about the shares. And, one thing that we all talk about is, it's not all just about the shares, but the T shares, right? How many T shares can you get? Because those are pretty much what is equivalent to like a Bitcoin miner. They determine how much Hex you're paid out per day. So today, each T share is $140. And the beautiful thing that the way that I think of it and the way that I think people in Hex should be thinking about things is that Hex is a long-term product, right? It's designed to be like the certificate of deposit or the time lock or like the savings bond, right? And so when you're using Hex, I personally think of it as, okay, the T share is $140, but that's if you just lock it for one day, right? If you lock it up for the maximum length, which is either 5,555 days, or you can get the maximum amount of shares at 10 years, which is 3,641 days. When you factor in that the T share is 3 times cheaper when you stake out for longer, then you can realize that, hey, you can catch up to the whales. There's a lot of people, and sorry about my headphones, they keep falling out, but there's a lot of people that might be, T share wealthy right now, but how long are their time frames and how long are their time horizons? Because, we're going to see from the 10-year mark to the 15-year mark in Hex, we're going to see a lot of shares come out and we're going to see a lot of big stakes come out. And that's going to boost the APY and the amount of value that a T-share is for the people that are still holding. So I think that's, important to realize that when your stake ends, you are exchanging those T-shares for the Hex. And then if you decide to restake, then you have to restake at that new T-share rate. And it's significantly more expensive the longer that you wait. So if you have a 10-year stake and you realize your Hex and you realize your gains, and then you want to restake, well, you've got like 10 years worth of T-share rate spiking up that you're now going to have to pay that current rate. So the beautiful thing about Hex is, today is always the best day to start, to get staked. We talk a lot about ladders in Hex and in staking, right? In traditional banking, there's, certificate of deposit ladders. But one of the things that I personally learned myself is, how many stakes is too many? Because one thing that I didn't personally see happening recently was the higher gas fees. And so if someone has like multiple stakes, say if they have like 10 stakes in 1 year, well, then that's 10 different gas fees that you're having to pay for the computation every single time that stake ends. And, that's just more and more Ethereum. So the thing that I've learned is, hey, I can do a ladder. I like staking ladders, but I'm also going to go bigger and have more T-shares working for me as opposed to multiple smaller stakes. So just wanted to speak from experience, right? I think for the stakes that are anywhere from 5 to 15 years in the future now, I think that the gas problem will already be solved. Or if it wasn't, then Hex would have airdropped to a different, it would have a different layer that it was on. But for anything that's coming out recently, it's probably not the wisest to have multiple stakes, because you're going to spend a lot of money in fees, and then you're going to realize, oh, this stake made X amount of profit, but then you got to factor in the gas fee and things like this. So Don't Panic says hi. Good to see you, my friend. And then, yeah, David, good to see you as well. And then Billy Boy. So appreciate all the people watching. But yeah, the T-share right now is $140 if you're just staking for one day. And out of all of the wallets that could stake, out of 100% of people that could stake, a 9.666 are staking. And the average APY, which is about a 5-year stake, is getting a 37.94% APY each year. Okay, and then if we scroll down just a smidge, this is another thing that actually Whales Only, he does a lot of great data from, and this website kind of doesn't do its justice because the way that he does the charts are pretty just easy on the eyes. But this is just the share rate itself, right? This is the rate that never goes down. And each time that you end a stake, especially when you have an OG Genesis share stake, what you're going to have is that actual T-share rate has to spike up in accordance that you're not getting more shares if you restake for the same time and the same length. So we can just see, when Richard Hart talks about Hex emulating and being an analog, the actual share rate itself for compounding interest, this is what he's talking about. So we can see there's these little spikes, right? It's kind of easier if I don't hover over it, but we can see there's little spikes, and it goes up here, and then we've got a certain length of time, and then it goes up again. And that's just raising its difficulty. It's similar to like Bitcoin with its hash rate. And then one thing just for perspective, you can see that, the actual, the actual big payday itself was this is big payday right here. It was a huge spike to the actual share rate itself. And this is kind of what emulates the compounding interest along with your T-shares, retaining its value and its share rate for the length of time that your stake is. So Identity Block says, we're here at $150 a T-share and under a penny hex. It's so true. And like even under $1,500 Ethereum, in my opinion, is a steal. We just recently ran up to $2,000 in Ethereum, Bitcoin, Hex. They are like the blue chip cryptos. And even a fluctuation of Ethereum being at $1,400, a month or 2 months ago, right now, you're still in the green. And so, like I mentioned earlier, if you just zoom out on the chart and you don't look at it from a daily basis, then you can kind of realize, okay, there's fluctuation happening, but as it happens, it's trending in the direction that you want it to, which is up. That's at least what I've noticed. Okay, and then we can take a look at what Hex is doing right now. Let's take a look real quick here. So yeah, and then if anyone's got any questions in the chat, we do have about 40 people watching, or if anyone has any input that I haven't covered but they want to cover, and topics that you want to cover, feel free. Let me share the screen real quick here. Okay, so uniswap.hex.vision, and this will get you the current liquidity and the current price on V2 Uniswap. Another thing, guys and gals, about the actual price of Ethereum being about $1,400 right now is the actual gas prices themselves. I made a little video about this, but the gas prices themselves are significantly cheaper than they were last week or 2 weeks ago. And, in a bull market, Richard mentions you want bull market, you get high fee, right? And that's what happens. A lot of people, they submit their transactions around the same time, which clogs the market. But right now we can see that Ethereum's having a little bit of a pullback, and that the actual fee to run a stake, to end a stake, to swap from ERC20 token to ERC20 token is cheaper. And I'm all about spending less fees. So that's something I wanted to mention as well. Okay, so this is the just Hex price chart. You can see that it's kind of got like a point of resistance, even just at the like 70% of a penny, like just kind of right here. So like, I mean, you can see how many times the chart has actually touched it, right? We touched this barely, wicked up, went all the way back down, consolidated. Then we came back up, tested the last wick, and frickin' plowed right through, you know? And then tested it once again. You know, wherever it retested, didn't do well, went down. So the long story short is we're kind of consolidating, you know, above the 50% of a penny mark, above the, you know, like the 60% penny mark. And I think that's really good for Hex, because this is just the Uniswap version 2. But then for all of the, you know, Hexican OGs that have been in since day one and have seen the actual full price chart, if you go to the version 1, you can see it goes all the way to, you know, December 15th. So it's funny to see, you know, sometimes people getting emotional because maybe they bought here on February 11th and then right now it's down. But then if you just see that each time as it goes up and down, its actual overall trend is kind of slanted upwards, and you realize, okay, you know, Hex has product market fit, right? In Hex, you're earning, you know, an interest daily based on the amount of T-shares that you have. And so some of these other cryptos like Bitcoin, it doesn't pay you an interest to hold it. And as far as the mining consensus goes and the way that the crypto is designed, it causes a lot of sell pressure for the people that are mining it, right? They've got to pay their electricity bills. So in Hex, the beautiful thing is that it incentivizes the miners, which are us, the stakers, to hold and to also get an interest based on the staking. So that's what I want to say there. El Hexadente, he's in the chat. Hey, good to see you, man. I look forward to possibly hanging out with you in like a week or two. So that'd be really cool to, you know, take a couple photos and, you know, get a bite to eat, something like that. So Blue Bum, good to see you, my friend. The Australians are awake. Says, morning all. Good to see you from down under. And actually, speaking of which, we had on Friday a Discourse Syndicate, the ladies, right? The Pirate Ladies, they hosted a stream, which I think they did a really good job of. So, you know, congrats to Sammy, to Blaze, to, you know, all of the ladies, Nerd Girl, that attended, and Serena as well. You know, everyone did a good job. Cool. So yeah, El Hexadente, good to see you, my friend. Crypto Ross, hey, it was cool to have you on my stream once. You know, look forward to talking to you again sometime soon. And Soul 88 Tireless, what's up? So yeah, back to this Hex chart, right? One thing that the chart doesn't factor is when you're looking at the chart itself, that is just like spot, right? The actual gains from this chart, you know, from where the low is until now, all of that stuff doesn't factor in that you're getting paid interest based on your T-shares. And so even when Hex, you know, if we zoom in just a smidge, even when it has its little legs down, you know, sometimes people, they get flooded out and they're emergency end staking their bags, or, you know, sometimes that scares them away and they sell. And at the end of the day, Hex itself, it's just doing what it's performed to do. You know, if you look at like Richard's random line, or if you look at just even projections, you know, from a year from now or 10 years from now, you can just see that, like, man, Bitcoin used to be a penny as well. And where's it at now? You know, 45,000. Okay, that's 4.5 million X. You know, things like Hex that are similar to Bitcoin, but they took out the negative they took out the negative features and the selling pressure features and added more features that incentivizes the person to hold. Well, that sounds a lot better than Bitcoin. And when you have something that is rare, similar to Bitcoin, things like this, it really brings out that De Beers analogy that Richard talks about on Big Payday. Do you want Hex to be $10,000 a share, or do you want it to be really, really cheap and keep earning interest? When it's going to be $10,000 a share, we might be earning less APY. There might be more people staking. But if the cost of the individual Hex or the individual share are going up, then a lower APY is not going to be the end of the world, because those two numbers multiply. Even at 100%, here's the thing, even at 100% staking participation rate, like we saw at Big Payday, you're still getting 3.69% interest. And when you factor in that the dollar itself is almost hyperinflating, I mean, within the past year itself, we printed about 80% of the current fiat supply and the current US dollar supply. So that's a lot of money printing. And things like Hex, they're bound by code. They're not bound by, governments and wars and money printing. They're bound by code of law. And so with things like Hex being immutable, and with things like Hex being true DeFi, then as more people get into crypto, and as other cryptos have hacks or bugs, things like that, well, Hex will just be sitting in the corner and will be, be ready with open arms, right? When people are ready. And see, a lot of people, even since I've been in Hex, has been day one, but I've seen a lot of people have like severe animosity towards Hex, and I've seen them come around as well and realize, like people like Ken Bozak, he had his feelings, emotional feelings towards Hex and towards Richard when Hex first came out, and so much to the point where he blocked the term Hex on Twitter. And then he realized, thanks to Nerd Girl and other people in the community, they kind of chipped away and realized, like, hey, even though the community can be aggressive from the gatekeeping and whatnot that we've had, the actual product itself it's not any it doesn't lack legitimacy, right? If anything, it has the most legitimacy for just maintaining its actual function, which is to pay interest trustlessly, which is to have 100% uptime. Hex is constantly having like improvements as well. Around the community, we've got people like Steph, we've got people like Firebun. We're going to go to Firebun's website in just a few minutes, Hex.vision, and you can see when the majority of people are ending their stakes. And when you can see that, okay, the average amount of stake length is 5 years, and it's only going up, right? The average used to be like, it used to be like a year, and then, slowly ramped up, and it used to be way less than that. But when you see the average starting to go up, and when you see the FUD and, the slander that people use, not only for Hex, but, for Bitcoin or Ethereum, when you hear people just saying stuff that's completely contrary to what's actually happening, well, the price doesn't really, it's kind of like the facts don't care about your feelings type deal. The price chart also doesn't care about your feelings. And, a lot of people are starting to realize that, hey, Hex isn't going away anytime soon. And it's a really cool product, and I'm proud to see it not have any hacks or any exploits or any inflation bugs, things like that. So it's, if you're a Hexican that's been in the community, and especially if you've been around for any amount of time, not only do you witness, personally the gatekeeping and almost animosity, but you realize that, this isn't as bad as the people that were naysaying it said it was going to be. So it's cool to actually, do your own research and to realize that you need to, you need to look at many different angles, many different possibilities, and then also the code itself, right? The code is law, and that's why in Bitcoin, in 2017, a lot of altcoins kind of came out to compete with Bitcoin. because code is law and because Bitcoin was having its problems, a lot of people wanted to create better solutions to Bitcoin's problems that have competed. They've taken some of the market cap or the share away from it. So something like Hex is going to do the same, in my opinion. It's almost like a black hole where, it's just quietly sitting on the market cap charts. And then, in 2020, we saw Hex go from wherever it was at its lowest all the way up to top 5 on Nomics. And that's how quick Hex can just, come from nowhere and be like, oh, we're here now. We're top 5. And I know that was temporary, but we're going to get back there. And, when it happens again, there's going to be more economic mass behind it and more structure to hopefully maintain the market cap itself. Because at the end of the day, people in the short term, they might, trade this token or that token and things like that, which is fine. But on the other hand, things like Hex, they really are like stable almost, right? You're getting paid the daily interest, and sure, other people chase the pump in this token or that token, but at the end of the day, things like Hex, they're staying up, right? And they have the community. So shout out to Franklin. He says, "Sup, Brand." Oh yeah, so there's this application called Clubhouse, and honestly, I've never used it. It's only available for iOS and iPhone users, but I've heard pretty good things from it so far. So Franklin says, "I got a couple Clubhouse invites. Who needs one?" So if anyone needs a Clubhouse invite, just message Franklin. He's got you covered. Stylus19, what up, y'all? Hey, good to see you. We're also going to... One second here. It doesn't look like anybody's on DLive, which is totally fine. Looks like YouTube is kind of the dominant platform anyways. Yeah, Pabalaba says, nice. Sweet interest. And yeah, that's the cool thing about Hex, and kind of the point that I was making earlier is, people like Harry that Richard had on the other day, people like him remember when banks were paying you an interest, right? To incentivize and to have you hold your money in their savings account. And they'd pay you at like a 5-10% interest, whatever interest they would end up paying back in the day. And so for 100% of Hex stakers, which we don't have right now, we've got 10%. But for people like us to be earning, 36 or almost 40% APY as an average Hexican staker, things like that are just unheard of. And, people look at even like Celsius in the Hex community, things like that are paying out an APY. And I think what we're seeing is a trend of being paid an interest. And, other things will have more centralized or more counterparty risks of interest. And then other things like Hex will, also have no counterparty risk and, will incentivize people to stake longer and to have their T-shares. So you kind of get the best of both worlds with Hex. You don't have to worry about the government cracking down, or, you don't have to worry about these things that could be, possible security threats and other cryptocurrencies, which people claim or people think are completely DeFi. In reality, if they've got an admin key or they've got things that can compromise its security, then that could be a threat vector, an attack vector, things like that. So we've got maybe about an hour left. Hexologist goes around 3:40 Pacific Standard Time. So yeah, just want to say hello to everyone in the chat. Thank you for tuning in. It's good to be back. And next week at this time, I should be at the new apartment. So maybe I can grab the laptop, spin it over, and show you guys the Ferris wheel and just the Puget Sound itself. So it's a really, really nice view that we're moving to. So yeah, back to this. Hex is looking strong. Like I mentioned earlier about the Ethereum gas fees, things like that. If you had a stake that was ending, or you had some swaps that you wanted to make, now is at least a lower gas fee than it was 1 or 2 weeks ago. I mean, I've had a couple of small stakes that were, needing to be ended that, were maybe like 20,000 hex, nothing big at all. But the actual fee to end it, 1 or 2 weeks ago was like $75, $150 of gas, things like that. So when you start to realize, when I mentioned earlier, when I mentioned that in Hex you can do staking ladders, there also is a diminishing point where the actual amount of gas fee, and then you got to figure taxes and short-term gains and long-term capital gains. But there is a point of no return where now you're actually making diminishing returns if you have too many stakes or if you have too low of a Hex principal that you're staking with. Because when you end the stake, it's going to be more of a gas fee than it costs you to start your stake. Because when you start your stake, it's just time stamping, right? It's just time stamping and saying that, Brandon Balliet, is starting this stake on this day. But then, 10 years later, when you go to end that stake, now this whole time in between, that's all computation that the Ethereum miner has to do in order to validate that that's actually true. So that all takes gas, and that's what makes the, stake $150 or things like that. But I look at my stake the other day, and then it was like $30. So it's like, okay, that's more reasonable. So to the people that were listening, sometimes it's hard, right? You're wondering, like, should I get penalized on my stake, 1% each week for 100 weeks, or should I just pay the gas fee now and hope that the gas fee doesn't go down, things like that. So if you just would have waited 1 or 2 weeks, we can see the gas fee is already slowly coming down. So I'm happy to see that. Let's say hello to the chat. Leaping Leads, nice to have you. Franklin, like to get an invite. Yes, Franklin is the man for the Clubhouse invites. So if anybody, you're on an iPhone and you want to be on the latest and greatest social media application, message Franklin, St. Hex, and he'll get you an invite for Clubhouse. So Ank_Superman. Hey, Bran. Good to see you. You should visit that cool new website everyone is talking about. Let me know. Oh, yeah. He's talking about the Clubhouse. Yeah, exactly. And even Richard, I from what I heard, he was on like a Bitcoin Clubhouse and then ended up getting censored after a few minutes of, speaking on the poll itself. But cool to see at least when Matty Allen, he was on a Wall Street Bets Clubhouse or a Bitcoin Clubhouse, and some pretty prominent and influential people were in that specific meeting itself. And with people like Mark Cuban having Hex in their wallet, and I don't think the wallet itself had any Hex staked, but with the kind of like PR stunts that you see from the community where if Elon Musk posts out his public Ethereum address, well, then you as a Hexican or as a bag holder of any coin, you can send them Hex to their address. And if they're not moving it, then, then they have crypto. So I think that's really cool that, some people have donated to, I think it was Mark Cuban that had some Hex, like 420 Hex that was donated to him. And, that makes for some good press, and it makes for like good attention, right? Because people like him have been pretty like outspoken lately about crypto, and there's a whole bunch of people coming on the crypto train because it's popular and because it's the up and coming thing. And now NFTs are the up and coming thing. And one thing that Richard mentions is in 2017 we had CryptoKitties, and you have this JPEG that is digitally scarce, but in reality is just a JPEG. And so one thing Richard's mentioned is with things like that are significantly more volatile and not much going for it itself, those can be the first things to to suffer like a market crash or correction and things like that. So when it comes to an actual market itself, you want to be, in my opinion, I prefer to be holding things that are going to go to zero. And it's almost like the Harry guy the other day. He was talking about that he wanted to get into a 10-year or a 30-year treasury bond nowadays because it would hedge against any of the volatility that the dollar would be having now. And one thing Richard mentioned was, hey, Harry, you don't have to buy this 10-year or this 30-year treasury bond thing. You can get into a DeFi stable coin, or you can lend out your stable coin, or even Hex is almost like virtual lending, except you're just getting interest based on the actual T-shares you own. But pretty much Richard's point was, you can be conservative in the crypto market and hedge yourself against volatility and still make, 6% APR, 6% APR, or, the higher amount of APR that he's mentioned too. So when it comes to cryptocurrencies and when it comes to hedging, your trades on, staying in dollars, staying in cryptos, you can be in less volatile things like USDC or other stable coins. Because someone I know recently, you have a bag, right? It goes up, say Ethereum, as it hits 2,000, and you pull up your MetaMask and it's looking good, and then you're so proud because it's like, oh, my wallet is at this amount, and then as you start to see the price dwindle, as we've seen recently from 2,000 to 1,400, starts to get the emotions going. And as opposed to be emotional, if you can realize, hey, let's not be emotional and let's be logical. I can earn 40% APY, for a 5-year stake, or with Hex, the actual scarcity itself and the actual game theory components in it can be very popular to the point where, it is a hedge against, the negative comings for, DeFi hacks or exchange exit scams, things like that. Hex will always be the thing in the background. And then in the future, it'll have such a network effect that Whales Only talks about, and that other people have talked about too. But when you have that network effect and you have that S curve itself, if you even compare like Bitcoin, if you compare Hex now to Bitcoin back then, and then you see that Bitcoin went up 5 million X, as far as the S curve goes, like Hex is right here and Bitcoin is right here from like 10 years ago. We still have all of this to do. And when you see things go up 5 million X, and when you see things becoming the top performing asset class in the world, then it starts to get other people's attention that might have not speculated in crypto in the first place. So we're starting to see, hedge funds really getting into crypto, institutional money, but also, retail traders themselves that didn't specifically think that they would be getting into crypto. So shout out to Retro Static for the cheer for the 100 bits. Thank you very much. Let me get some water real quick here. Cool. So we got a full crowd, right? If anyone wants to come in for a little bit, you can. I'll throw out the invite link again. Once again, I'm going to be going until Hexo does his live stream at about 3:40, which is about 53 minutes from now. So if someone wants to come in and also entertain the chat, then they can as well. We can have a cool conversation. So yeah, we've looked at kind of the pricing. We've talked a little bit about Hex. The thing about cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, all you can do is buy it and sell it. And, you can transfer it and things like that too. But can you build decentralized applications on top of it? No, not really, because it's spaghetti code itself makes it hard to work with. Things like Hex being built on top of Ethereum, which is the first mover's advantage for the Solidity smart contract platform, is the most secure and is the most stable network to be built on top of. And so even like 1 or 2 weeks ago, yes, the gas fees can be high, but I think that also goes to tell me that people are doing too many transactions. That's just my opinion. If you're, I mentioned earlier, if you're paying a, $30 gas fee or a $50 or even $100 gas fee every single time you need to do a transaction, then you should probably limit the amount of times that you're doing transactions, and should probably stop swapping back and forth because that's going to cost you a lot of gas. So for me, I've personally learned as even a day one Hexican that holy shnikes, I have too many stakes. And even in the beginning, I threw out some really fat stakes. And now I'm going back to that kind of staking habit where, some people's limit is 100,000 or whatever your limit is based on the length of time. You want to make sure that that time that you're waiting for the stake is going to be worth it. I've got some free claim stakes that were 1,000 hex, 2,000 hex, and they were like shortly after the big payday itself because I didn't know how much it was going to be worth. So I just threw it out for a short amount of time, and guess what? Now those stakes are bleeding out. And so there's this hidden game theory that happens in Hex, and similar to Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin has a alleged supply and a theoretical supply of 21 million total. But then you've got people like Satoshi that have, keys and holdings of 1 million Bitcoin, but have never, transferred or interacted with the network itself. So then you've got a smaller supply than what's claimed. And in Hex, we've got the same thing. If we go to Hex.vision, let me refresh this real quick here. So Hex.vision, it's a website that Firebun developed. We're going to share the screen real quick here. This is not only the website to go for data and analytics, but as far as the price history and just history itself of stakes, this is like one of the best websites to go to. So we're going to share the screen and then Hex.vision. So yeah, first off, shout out to Firebun for doing this. Him and Steph have the Staker app, which is great, but we don't have Hex.live anymore. So we just have like the Staker app. We've got Hex.vision, and we've got, possibly mobile versions. We've got internet versions in the future, hopefully, of things like the Staker app. But for now, we just have Hex.vision. And if we scroll, I don't know if I can zoom this out real quick here. So we can kind of see the actual total supply of, that's kind of messing me up. So the total supply of Hex itself is in, the hundreds of billions, right? It's like 550 billion, something like that. And the screen itself is kind of glitching out on me for a second. So maybe if I can just scroll down, I can, address the point that I want to make. So people look at the total supply of Bitcoin, which is 21 million. And then, like I mentioned earlier, you've got big entities that hold it that necessarily haven't put it in supply. So what I'm trying to say is Hex has the origin address, and the OA staked for, a couple of days up into the big payday, earning that actual big payday itself. But what it is in analogous terms and analogy is like the De Beers diamond company, right? It is that value that's saying, hey, this theoretical supply is this, or the total supply is this right now, but what's the amount circulating? And then you realize, there's some people that have 15-year stakes, and, in the future, they're going to keep doing 15-year stakes. And the whole time that your Hex is staked, it's taken that supply of Hex and it's burned it, right? You replace it for shares. So in reality, Hex is significantly, absolutely, a lot of people don't realize this, but it's so much more rare than people are seeing it at, right? They're just seeing it from a 1D view, from a first dimension view, but then you realize, like I said, the OA, and then you realize, the actual people that have large amounts of shares, and what are they doing? You have a whole bunch of Hex that was recently minted. It was like 1 billion Hex, I believe, it was like good counted, and then it was minted. And what that does is it makes the share rate, go up in accordance, so that person can't restake and get even more. Identity says, what if the origin address starts burning supply one day in the future? If they start burning supply, I mean, yeah, that is one thing that some people have talked about is, I don't know, it's like fun to think about, right? That like, oh, the OA can stake and then emergency end stake, and then we're gonna get the fees and whatnot. I'm not sure if that's what you're alluding to, but the cool thing about Hex itself is when that supply is burned, it's not showing up on things like Etherscan. It's just an empty wallet until you actually realize that. So even the most advanced systems like Etherscan can't even comprehend what shares are, which is pretty interesting to think about and consider that Richard's developed something that is so revolutionary in that regard. So I feel like I'm kind of just brushing over information that I've covered before. I guess if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them now, because we're kind of covering information that I feel like a lot of us already know about. So for the next stream, I should be joining on the Tuesday roundtable, and then after that, we've got the Discourse Syndicate itself this Friday that I should be trying to join as well for the effing hangout, so I can hang out with all you pirates. But I guess we'll kind of cover some last information, and then if no one really has any other comments to make, I guess then we'll end it a little bit early, and we'll take a break for the day and get to the moving. Alrighty. So this is the other thing that people should know before they lock their Hex, right? You can have your Hex be liquid, and you can sell it tomorrow when it pumps up, if it pumps up, or you can have your Hex staked and be earning an interest. But before you do that and earn an interest, my recommendation would be that you go to Hex.vision, because then you can see when other people are ending their stakes. So if we just look, we can see, right now, just 2021 in general is a lot of supply realization. And we can see that and you can also see like this is kind of going up as the supply is going down. And between like the 3 and 5 year mark, like between the 3 and 5 year mark right here, we can just see how little Hex there actually is that could be realized on the market. And then you gotta, think, what are these people doing with their Hex and with their profits? Some people, they'll realize profits and they'll realize a little bit of interest, but also some people will take it and they'll restake. And what does that do to the supply? Let's see, Billy Boy, the origin address is designed to prevent any hard forks. And we've even seen things that have like copycatted Hex's contract code, not directly, but it's pretty darn close. And we've already seen, things like that on day one have these massive problems. And as far as the first mover's advantage itself goes, when I was on Motley's stream earlier today, we were talking about Pokemon. His whole video was designed around the Pokemon and these, rare cards, these shiny rare cards. Well, there was also a lot of like derivations or like derivatives of things that were similar to Pokemon, right? And in crypto, we've had things that were similar to Bitcoin. We had Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin BSV, and then, these other things. And now we've got these things that are similar to Ethereum, and, they're get a little bit of a leeway, they're getting a little bit of attention. And I think things like that are good, right? They're causing Ethereum to stay accountable. Otherwise, more people might start focusing on that and giving those things more attention, right? The competition more attention. So when he says the origin address is designed to prevent hard forks, it totally is. The way that Richard thought about Hex so far in advance, in so many decades in advance, is absolutely amazing. The fact that if someone does try to copy the code and start marketing it as their own, the fact that that is illegal, the fact that it's all rights reserved, things like that. Richard, he didn't show the front end designed, right, for things like the AA and things like that work with 100% uptime is nearly unheard of in crypto. Even things like Bitcoin have had critical vulnerabilities and it's still gone up 6 million X from a penny. So for things like Hex to have, all the game theory that Bitcoin has and then way more, and then incentivization to actually hold it for a long time is they're going to start making the average going up more and more and more. I mentioned that it used to be like a year and less than a year, and now it's at 5 years is the staking length average. Well, what's going to happen when it's 10 and 15 years? People are starting to realize that, the actual shares themselves are kind of what you should be focusing on, right? Because that's the thing that's paying you the interest. So if you can realize that, hey, I can pay myself, quarterly, or I can pay myself, every other year, things like this, then you can have more shares and you can have, more potential and more time that the actual T-share is working for you. Hexable Archer says, thanks for the stream, bro. You're a hardworking mofo. Hey, thanks, man. Yeah, it'll be nice to do like the next stream and to stream in like a week or two from now, because I'll be all moved over, and that'll be nice. There's different things that can be like stressful, right, in life. Moving is one of them. Speaking in front of stages or like major events like that can be one of them. So it'll be nice to finish up once I'm done with this. I'm gonna take down this mirror, that mirror, and get the move on the way. So thank you for commenting. We've got like 50 people watching, and just appreciate everyone giving me their attention. So yeah, shout out to Discord Syndicate, Big Pep. He also, what is he now? He's the Pep Factor. That's his new YouTube account. We can actually highlight real quick here. One second here. We can highlight Big Pep's new channel. Because here's the thing that sucks is, not only did YouTube randomly take down Hexologist's channel for no reason, he had no profanity or nudity or anything like that he was promoting. Not only did they do that to Hexologist, but they did it to Big Pep recently too. And so if you haven't followed Big Pep's new channel, you need to. And that's why I'm going to share his new YouTube account right now. So let's share. One second here. Stop the screen. Okay, cool. So and I actually need to turn on the notifications. The notifications was on the last channel, but not this channel. So yeah, for anyone that wasn't familiar, let me put his URL in the chat just so people can click over there and they can go resubscribe to Big Pep. So yeah, for anyone that wasn't updated, YouTube randomly shut down Big Pep's channel. And it's always in the middle of a live stream. I'm wondering, like, is it my connection? And then I go to refresh, and then, it's saying that, like, this channel was taken down for whatever violation, XYZ violation that YouTube wants. So yeah, go check out Big Pep's channel. Shout out to you, Big Pep. One thing I wanted to say is he's taking, Gary Funding Jim's advice, and I need to be better about this in a couple of weeks when I get restructured. Is how can we not just talk about Hex the whole time? How can we find some sort of niche? Like, today earlier, Motley did, like I mentioned, a whole bunch of Pokemon card unboxing, and people like Big Pep in this video kind of do more of a traditional, like a finance 1.0 perspective and analysis. And I think things like that can rope the people that we want. We want Hex to have its adoption. Richard mentions one thing that Bitcoin initially wanted to be in its white paper was the peer-to-peer cash, right? Or peer-to-peer digital currency, I should say. And now they changed narratives to store value and things like this. Oh, nice, dude. We got a Conrad in the house. So let me cover his chat in just a second. But anyways, we got a whole bunch of those things, and let me cover Conrad's comment. So he says, just wanted to make sure you guys know that QuickSwap is funded by Binance, as stated in my recent stream. You know what? I actually didn't see your most recent stream. I need to rewatch it. Yeah, another gentleman as well, Conrad. A great guy. If you're not following him, you need to. And I'll need to look into that a little bit more. I'll be honest, I haven't used QuickSwap yet. I know it's layer 2 and it's built on all this other stuff. And like I said, for me, I've personally taken the stance of, less is more, right? The less stakes that I have that are bigger, similar to Kareem. Kareem has a dream wallet that he talks about, where his number happens to be 2 million, but whatever your limit is for the amount of hex that you want to stake, stick to it, and don't get too caught up in the weeds, because a lot of people this year, and not myself fortunately, but a lot of people were paying themselves this year weekly or on a monthly basis. And when you have factors like the gas fees going up, well then, hey, maybe that wasn't a factor that you were thinking about. So with Hex, we got to realize, okay, what's the average stake doing? 5 years? Okay. Well, if I'm staking under the average, then you're paying a lot more than the other people that are having a longer time horizon than you. Retrostatic, nice one, Balliet. I was only thinking about Big Pep's stream today. Yeah, Big Pep, great guy. Even one of the ladies, Chloe, or one of the ladies on the the lady pirate, Hexican stream on Friday, we're talking about that they haven't seen a community with this caliber of men and this caliber of people in a long time, if ever. Right? A lot of Bitcoiners had the community and stuff like this, but now we see with Hexicans, a lot of us do lift each other up, and we want to support each other with cross promotions and any information that we can do to make someone's life better. And we can do that by sharing information with each other. So people like Conrad, go follow him. People like Identity Block, he's done some videos in Spanish and done some tax information as well. So those are things you got to factor in too. Maddie says, hey children, Crypto 303, David, Brand. Yeah, good to see you, Maddie. This is why I appreciate all of the Hexicans that have come out, and not that you have to show your face, but people finding holes that need to be filled and providing value where it might have been lacking. When someone like Matty Allen came out and did, and still does, but when he does Hex Therapy Live, and him and Joe, that's when him and Joe Hexotic were kind of doing some episodes, and I started to realize, man, this community is so much more than just Hex, right? It's about, I don't know. I think once you do your stake, well, now it's okay, you're not trading every single day, right? If you throw a stake, if you throw out a stake for say 5 years, well, great. You can sit back and know that every single day you're getting interest based on your T-shares, but you can also be productive in other assets and aspects of life, right? Crypto doesn't just have to be about, crypto 24/7 and just engulfing yourself in it. Part of it is also, people like Richard have written books on it, but how do we fix the world, and how do we fix health and aging and things like this? So I'm really passionate about the stuff outside of Hex as well. And I want to, even myself, want to either talk about other topics or somehow introduce other topics too that can be relative to Hex and whatnot, but maybe not solely on Hex? How can we all benefit from each other, and like, what information do I have that I can share that people might be able to relate to as well, just outside of staking and stuff like that. So I said all that to say that people like Maddie made me realize that, man, it's kind of nice to have this therapist around. Not like he's our therapist, jokingly so, because he's a psychologist outside of in his profession and whatnot. But it makes you realize that, like, man, some of us have 15.2 year long stakes, Quattro Cinco. And I was telling my dad, I said, I'm fucking crazy to be 24 and staking for something, that's over half my lifetime. And, in Hex and in other cryptos, people can talk the big game, right? But in Hex, the thing that I've always loved about just life in general is, like, yeah, sure, people can talk the big talk, but can they walk the walk? Can you walk the walk? And so with Hex, you can. Like I said, the facts don't care about your feelings. The average staking length is 5 years. People can commit their confidence in Hex by staking, and that's what we're seeing. And it's an S curve of adoption too that is probably it has the most chance of getting a wallet to every phone. The mass adoption that Richard mentioned, things like Clash of Clans and things like these online video games that people are playing, they've got 100 million users daily. And Hex has good market participation, and we've got good community participation too. But if you think about where we're at right now, just at 1 year, like I said, an S curve goes like an S, right? Actually, let's just look at it real quick. S curve adoption. This is one thing that Richard was talking about to the hairy guy, and the hairy guy was like, I'm a master of S curves and stuff like this, but I don't think he was getting Richard's whole point about when you print something like the Venezuelan bolivar, its value might be getting worth less, even though it looks like it's higher on the chart. Okay, so let's look at, just while I can entertain myself / you guys, let's look at a S curve adoption real quick here. Okay, cool. S curve adoption, and people like Wales are really good about articulating this too. They're pretty good about articulating stuff like this. But as far as Hex goes, one thing Maddie pointed out, it was on hexgraphs.com, but there was like Bitcoin right here, and there was Hex right here, and then there was Bitcoin where it is now, and Bitcoin was like maybe here, but then Hex was, Hex is that opportunity of Bitcoin at a penny. And when I was on the stream earlier with Motley, we were talking like, man, things really do go up higher than you expect them to. And a lot of people in crypto, they got a 1x or a 2x or, a 10x, things like that, or even 100x. But if you had sold Bitcoin at the 100x, a penny to a dollar, or even a 10,000x, then you didn't realize that, this had more use case than just the adoption that was in the ecosystem then. Because years later, you got more adoption, more mass of wealth accumulation in that asset, and all of a sudden we have, Bitcoin's huge growth. And so this is the S curve adoption, in my opinion, personally, in Hex. So we've got the innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. So, I mean, say if you just look at this even from like 15 years, but almost even longer in Hex, right? But in my opinion, we're like right here. We're still at the innovators, because when you look at the total percent of adoption, if you had 100 million users daily, like Clash of Clans does and like these other games do, well, then that is something that, Bitcoin couldn't achieve, but Hex could aim to achieve. And so as far as the S curve itself goes, like I said, even right here, a penny all the way up to say $60,000. If you can just zoom out, where did we start the stream? We started it on Ethereum at $1,400, and we zoomed it out from 2000. So what does the chat think? Danny Boy says, I'm always in fear of missing out when I'm unable to buy. Yeah, Wales kind of talks about this, that like he's never seen any other crypto community where they were excited when the price went down, right? Or you wanted the price to go down. I know people that even at the big payday, they wanted to buy, I think it might have been before big payday, but they had a price target of like 20% of a penny or like 30% of a penny. And it didn't wick to their exact number that they had wanted. And they missed out. And, they were set on the price hitting their number versus adjusting their worldview and realizing, hey, this is the dip that I've been looking for. Maybe it's not going to reach the value I thought it was going to be perceived at. So, Children of the Grave, oh, Danny Boy, I get knocked down, but I get back up again. Well, and guys and gals, I mean, depending on the amount of shares you have and things like that are great. But if you realize even just 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, how many, even myself, I've, got plenty of stakes with Genesis shares and whatnot, but how many of those stakes are going to get realized within the next year, 2 years, 3 years that are just going to make the value and rarity of T shares significantly more and parabolically more? The actual T share itself, the beautiful thing about it is that when you have a Cuatro Cinco stake, 5,555 days, 15.2 years, you're locking in that day's rate, that day's share rate for that length of time. And Hex is just designed so beautifully. And I'm proud to be a part of it, to have found it, to have, withstood and withheld through all of the FUD, right? There were so many times similar to like Ethereum when, like I've told some friends this, like, I remember Ethereum when, went from like 1,500 and then it had its major bear market, like its 95% correction. That shit went to like $80 or like 88, like might be like my lowest buy. But even then people were thinking, oh, the price is going to go to $10 Ethereum and it's going to go back to $3 Ethereum. And you realize that there's a new floor. And every single time in cryptocurrency, there might be a correction or whatnot, as it is a cycle. But like I mentioned, that just keeps ratcheting and ratcheting and ratcheting. And when you have something like the Hex share rate that's ratcheting up with the price itself, then it just creates a not only beautiful chart and graph and stuff like this, but it still leaves meat on the bone for people getting into it 2 years from now, 3 years from now, things like that. Let's look at some of the chat. Hey, yeah, Donnell, good to hear this, man, and thanks for participating. It's always nice to see you in chat. I think I've seen you in my chat a couple of times before. But he says working towards Squid currently, and yeah, man, I mean it's a great goal to work towards, and at the end of the day, a lot of people on Hex, myself included, my birthday's October 24th. Maybe I want some capital to, or maybe I want to treat myself right on my birthday, or my girlfriend on her birthday, or certain events around your life, maybe the new year, right, that you want to have your Hex stake end on. So when he mentions working for Squid, I think that's great. It's great to have a vision and a goal, right? Because if you're blindly just kind of working, then you're going to be treading, right? You're going to be treading water. You're going to be going nowhere. But if you have something that you're focusing on in anything, right? If it's, weight loss and health, or if it's, finance and success and stuff like that, no one started out at just a whole bunch of hex, right? You got to work towards it. And if you, as a new Hexican, right, say if you're just starting today and you can have a longer time horizon than the average staking length, then you're going to have that much more of an advantage over all of those people that have their average stakes end in 5 years. You're going to be sitting back, in 5 years, the amount of shares themselves, the more that they get burned and the more that people buy back in at higher T shares, the more valuable yours become the longer you have it. Never Gonna Keep Me Down. We got some song lyrics in here. Good references. Someone said I look like Richard's kid. You never know. I might be. Just kidding. I've heard the same thing with Hexo. So, a whole bunch of jokes. That's the other thing too is, same thing for like me and Hexo, even though, Richard, might follow us. It's not like we communicate on a daily basis. So it was kind of funny when Richard had his interview with Harry, people were tagging us and tell Richard his volume's low. That's the other thing too. So fortunately for this stream, we got the same mic that I have at my house. But when you got problems that you're kind of working with tech-wise on a live stream and you didn't realize it before, it's so hard and almost impossible to troubleshoot until it's over. So glad everyone was able to patiently wait for the new mic. All Things Funnel said, is the squid, dolphin, crab gamification thing only in the Staker app? Yes. Or did that start somewhere else? So the answer to your question, so Staker app was developed by Steph and Firebun. It's a conglomeration together. But the actual gamification came from a website which is no longer available, which was Hex.live. And Hex.live was Steph. It was his website that he made. And Firebun has another website which is Hex.vision. And the Hex.live website and the Hex.vision kind of like commingled those two developers, and they made Staker app. But yes, that did start from Steph, and that did start from the Staker app. And it's actually, you're doing something right in a product or community, right, when someone else tries to copy you, or when they do copy you, or they copy that specific gamification or tiered league system. Because when you have that and people are trying to replicate you, then that shows that they're trying to replicate something that is successful. So with even Staker app and with the actual gamification of the individual league systems within Hex, I've seen other crypto communities try to act like they were the innovators behind that. And it's like, no, you clearly copied. And here's where we can point to the original. So the other beautiful thing about Hex when you have first movers advantage is like when those competitors do come out that try to build on the original idea. Well, sometimes that first mover's advantage is the longest chain, right? It is the most stable as opposed to things like built on top. So yeah, that was built by Steph. Great stream. Keep it up. Hey, thanks, Conrad. Your streams are awesome too, man. And, it's really cool to, I need to be better about it, but like be better about like day-to-day life, like just, walking in Seattle and like, a blog or something, or, talking about Hex or, stuff that I notice, people like Conrad, he, he's sitting in the back of the Bentley or whatever vehicle it is. And it's cool to see his, his personal life a little bit. And, I know recently he had an anniversary the other day, so congrats on that. And then same thing with RG3 as well. It's cool to see some old photos, right, with the long surfer hair. So cool to see that. Donnell says, when I hear certain people say pumping mentals outside of Hex, yeah, there's Richard is such a prevalent person in the crypto space that when, like, even if someone is like claiming that was their original idea, usually the person ends up finding, like no matter how much Hex has been gatekept, usually people find out like, oh, in Celsius you might get this sort of interest, or in XYZ crypto, you might get, this sort of interest, but what's the top performer? What's the top yielding? And then you got to factor, is the top yielding thing also the most secure? Well, usually it's not. But with things like Hex, it is. Not only was it the top performing asset of 2020, but as far as that yield goes, I mean, a lot of us with those, even with the pre big payday Genesis shares, you're getting significant APY, and some of them for the max length are like 60% APY. Some people have shown me like 80% APY, and when you're dealing with those kinds of numbers, you don't have to fear its future certainty, right? That Hex is going to be around 10 years in the future, 15 years in the future, things like that. If any coin were to ever to get like hacked or exposed, things like that, Hex would be the first thing that people try to exploit because of how much animosity and negative emotions people have in the crypto space have towards Richard, right? So that's just the cool thing, is Hex really is the like David versus Goliath analogy, and similar to like the naysayers, right? You can only gatekeep something so long before, and a lot of us Hexicans have kind of used this analogy where like the community itself will route around the gatekeepers, and you start building solutions to the problems, and all of a sudden, hey, now we've got more adoption here, or less gas fees here, or things like this that continue Hex as a brand and continue its adoption while maintaining its security and scarcity and things like that, and not compromising Hex. Like people that want gas solved and things like this, like there's a certain rate that changes happen, and you don't want changes to happen too quick, because then the quicker something happens without actually being ironed out, there might be more mistakes. So the last thing you want is to have 10, 15-year stakes and then be wanting people to rush the process. Like, just let the process, do what it does. Let the social networking aspect of Hex, just slowly grow and grow and grow. I mean, the actual geometry of the logo represents Hex, and it represents, not only like geometrical growth, but exponential growth. And it's really cool. I mean, Crypty, she did a good job in the logo itself. Whoops, it's upside down. But it's missing, the first hexagon. And so it's cool to see, like, man, even just in the price chart, like, you look at Hex, and when it was 1 Satoshi, of course, everyone's kicking Hex while it's down at that time. And then Hex just kept, doing its thing and flipping the bird, and performed without those people. And it's really cool to see that it's rewarded those that did what they said they were going to do. Some people, they would consider like the emergency end staking, that it takes penalty, as like a negative aspect. And it's like, no, that just rewards the honesty in the behavior. So if you want to like trade Hex and speculate on Hex, then hey, probably doesn't make sense to stake it, right? Because you're probably going to want a shorter time frame. But for those that do stake it and lock it for the time that they committed to, as long as you end your stake within 2 weeks of when you said you were going to, you're not going to get any penalties. So it's really awesome in that regard, that it's just simple. The simpler you make it, the better. Donnell says, Richard did warn, if they keep this up, he will create workaround for and take money out of their pockets. I mean, yeah, and especially as, Richard's kind of alluded to, in the future, possibly there being similar to grayscale things. When you just look at where Hex is at now, and you look at where it could be even 3 years down the road, let alone 5 or 10 years, it gives me the chills every time, thinking like, oh my gosh, it's already grown this much with this much gatekeeping and innovation, let alone once that gatekeeping reaches a point of no return, Hex is just gonna be unstoppable, no amount of gatekeeping will be able to keep Hex down at a certain point. And it's already kind of reached that point where, the naysayers are slowly becoming more irrelevant, right? So the more that someone has a bad call, why would people continue to follow those bad calls? Doesn't make sense. Crypto Gains Club 369, smash the like. Smash the like if you bought the FACN dip. Yeah, smash that like. I definitely bought the dip, and that's the thing too about crypto, right? It goes up and it goes down. But if you're in things like Ethereum, like Hex, like Bitcoin, that have stood the test of time, then most likely it repeats itself and it goes back up and makes new highs eventually. So with things like, it says, does 85% of a penny count as a dip? Well, let's see where we're at now. I mean, honestly, anything under a penny is a solid steal in my opinion. When you just factor the amount of shares that you're getting. Pabalaba says, Balliet Brand, thank you. Thanks for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us. I'm still a noob learning our Hex product and listening to you explain in detail the fundamental is priceless. Hey, Pabalaba, appreciate it. I mean, appreciate you and the other 53 people that are watching. And, we can all kind of inform each other and build each other's ideas up, or even I've been given feedback before where it's like, hey, these 20-minute intros and whatnot, like, they're getting too long, or, like Mark has recommended, hey, show your face before you do your intro, things like that. We could all improve each other and we can all help each other grow with us collectively, right? Hex is cool because it's not like a zero-sum game. Like a lot of us do want other people to stake properly and do want other people to have healthy behaviors so they can have a good experience, right? If you screw someone over one time, sure, you got their money that one time, but they're not going to come back again. So with Hex, it rewards those people and it wants those people to come back again. It wants people to stake their Hex and remove that from the supply for the amount of time that they're staked. So things like Hex and things like the Hexicans are really good about leading by example. So I'm really proud of a lot of the people and all of us. Like I said, 1 penny was like unfathomable a year ago. And when Hex hit 2 pennies, New Year's Eve, it was kind of like emotional where it's like, man, maybe Hex actually can do what Richard has said, where, what if you could have had that opportunity to buy Bitcoin at a penny or $1, things like that. This really is akin, in my opinion, to that kind of opportunity. And when you factor in some of the other things that claim to be crypto or claim to be DeFi, when you see those falling like dominoes, then it just makes the legitimacy, of Hex more and more, like I've said many times in the stream. So Donnell says, we're going to look back at anything under 2 cents as unbelievable when it's $1 plus. And that's the other thing too. Other people have psychological numbers or just numbers that they plan to take profit and that they plan to sell at. And if your time horizon is longer than someone else, then, maybe that leaves more time for you to keep milking those fat gains. And so that is the beauty between dollar cost, mentioned this a lot, but between stakes, between years 10 and 15 for people's stakes is like the absolute golden age, right? Because at the 3,641 day mark, or roughly 10-year mark, where that share rate maxes out, you're going to have a lot of stakes maybe in 9 years from now coming out. And, the beautiful thing is the market cap will already be so high and the actual economic accumulation of Hex, like its wealth will be so high that even 10-year stakers selling on the market or limit selling, it's not going to make as big of an impact as people think if Hex continues to grow as it's done so. So it's beautiful that you can just think like, man, and even 10 to 15 years, like that's not, in my opinion, that's not a long time for me personally when I factor in that I'm considering Hex, my 401k. So, if I'm 24 and the average person that's retiring in the US is like, I think it's over 65 now. It's like 66 or something. If I can be 66 and have like 2 or 3 cycles of max length stakes in Hex, I'll, be doing, we'll be retired a lot earlier than the average. So, and somehow I've managed to, have 6 minutes until Hexologist comes on. So, appreciate everyone entertaining me in the chat and entertaining each other in the chat. And, for everyone staying on as long as you have. I feel like I haven't really covered a whole bunch besides like, fundamentals and where's my thinking and perspective, right? Because so many people, they're, you got your phone, right? You go to sleep, and before you go to sleep, stake your app. Or when you wake up in the middle of the night, stake your app. Or when you wake up in the morning, stake your app is the first thing you do, right? But the cool position to be in is to not be in that position anymore and just realize, hey, I just sit back, collect these, collect my shares worth of interest, and I do so daily. I've got, some people that might be in different positions, right? They're not hedged, or they're not diversified outside of one crypto to the point like, when Ethereum goes down or Bitcoin goes down, they're, kind of getting nervous and stuff like this. And that's why it is cool that things like Hex, hey, it goes down 70%, still making an interest every single day. And if your stake's not coming out anytime soon, then what do you care if in the meantime it goes down a little bit? You should be able to look at that chart and zoom out and realize, hey, my time horizon is here on the chart. My time horizon is 3 years in the future, 5 years in the future, yada, yada, yada. Where's the market going to be then? Don't worry about the short-term volatility if in reality your stake is years down the road. So a lot of us do get used to that because we're used to previous cryptos or, even stock market volatility. But Hex is different this time. I try to tell people that, like, they're like, oh yeah, nothing can ever go up, or, this will crash and XYZ, reason. And it's like, in Hex, it really does feel different. It's time. I mean, Hex does have the ups and downs and stuff like that, but just the way that it performs and the way that it's been resilient and bounced back is impressive to say the least. And, it happens at a quicker time than myself or probably anyone else could have expected. So for the last couple minutes, Hexologist starts in about 4 minutes. We're going to look at the chat for a couple minutes. But I do want to be over on Hexologist. Oh, okay. Okay, so he's got a few minutes before the stream starts. So we got 3 minutes until we're going to go raid him with the 60 people watching. So that's cool. All right, let's wrap it up. A few minutes. Extraordinary Crypto. Well done, 303. News to Rob. Hey, good to see you. Hey, this is kind of cool. He's got like half the Hex logo up here and the other half down there. Nas Hex. Hey, good band or good singer, rapper. Yeah, so true, Brand. The day will come. Exactly. It will come. And, don't try to force it, right? The diamonds, how do diamonds happen? They happen, through the slow and steady, what am I trying to say? Like compression, right? And so with Hex, it's like that compression of the diamond being formed is like the length of your stake. So like if you have 15-year stake, well, my damn, that diamond has no flaws. And, the more long that your stake is and other people's stakes are ending and their shares are ending, you start to realize, like, even if you have like a 1 T share or half a T share, 15 years out, 10, 15 years out, that's going to be significantly more than people can even comprehend, in 10 or 15 years from now. All right, a couple more comments. Crypto 303. I bought Bitcoin at $8 and left it. Looked at prices annually. Damn, that is cool. If you ever want to come on and share your experience, $8 Bitcoin is the second. You know, Richard has mentioned he's mined Bitcoin for free, and you're the second person that I know that's gotten it that cheap. So I'd love to have you on if you ever wanted to come on. Yeah, BG Hex says, saves us from emotions and lock it up for our financial safety. Yes, you know, Motley and I were talking before the live stream today started, and you know, in Hex, it does save yourself from yourself, right? If you have no Hex staked and you have 100% of it liquid, well then if you become more emotional, you're more likely to sell more of it than if you were to have some staked and have like that rainy day fund. So Hex really is like that rainy day fund. Going to be on the Forbes list after 3 15-year cycles. Yep, exactly. Extraordinary crypto brand. You're going to be retiring early. Exactly, it's true. And I'm going to have to end it right now. We're going to go raid Hexologist. So let me go over there and we'll raid his channel real quick. So in just a second, if you guys want to find more, you can go to allmylinks.com/BallyatBrand. But for now, we're going to go say what's up to Hexologist, give him some bits, and you know, thank him for doing all of his work. So it should be rating now. Whoops. Okay, now it's rating now. All right, guys, thank you. I'll see you on the next time. Peace.